Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Engineering Tech Show. And here are your hosts, Goshe King and Joe Green.
So, Joe, why the hell do you drive a Cadillac Escalade?
For style, of course.
That's a heavy price. But you have any kids?
I don't have any kids, no.
You do shuttle service of any sort?
No, I just like the extra space.
For who?
Whoever I need.
Imaginary friends?
Imaginary friends.
You've got some ghosts that linger around you and stuff?
I do. They get lazy sometimes. They need a ride. Dead bodies, who knows?
What's up with the 26 spinners on it?
Just style.
Are they 22 or 26?
They're 26s.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Wow, you're holding in style. Are you like a rapper or some sort? You know, do you rap? No? I mean, you don't have children.
Nope.
And you don't have, you don't do shuttle service. You don't bring doctors and nurses to the hospital when it's snowing out, do you?
Nope. Of course not.
Well, then you drive a gas guzzler. What's the
One day I may need that space. I would say most gas guzzlers are probably cars are picked for the status. I think just kind of a status symbol or
no. It's
symbol of
that
their
one day you
lifestyle.
need it.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, I'm gonna tow that big 10,000 pound RV, and I'm gonna need an Escalade for that.
For my mega yacht, I'm gonna get one day.
Why don't you then? You can drive an Escalade. Might as well just buy one of those 40-footer RVs that cost $250,000.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Have it tow my Escalade around.
Why don't you drive that instead of
That'd be a little difficult in the
nice
city.
little Japanese cars?
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Joe, the reason why we were having this discussion is that we are going to talk about smart cars.
Smart cars are
Not
pretty
the
good.
smart car that we see in America, that little 2-door smart car that costs $25,000.
Yep.
No, not that one. No, like genuinely Japanese, fancy, shanty looking smart cars.
Have you ever?
I don't know why I'm calling them smart cars. They're not. Well, they are. They have a lot of smart features.
Just like kind of compact, very.
Compact, small.
Yeah.
Sometimes even sports utility kind of looking. They're small. They're smaller in size.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, let's just roll right into it. I've had recently had a pleasure to test drive some Japanese cars that are, different models. Some of them are made by Toyota. Actually, they're made under the name of Daihatsu, which is a Toyota company. Honda makes some, and Nissan makes some, even Suzuki, and some other manufacturers like Mitsubishi makes some. Mazda makes some of them. So I've had pleasure of driving them, and turns out that the cars are not only compact, and if we were to compare them to an American car, you're looking at probably Mini Coopers, Chevy, what's the name of the Spark, like Ford Fiesta or Ford, Fiesta. What else? Like Nissan Versa. I think Versa is maybe a little bigger than what the cars that I'm talking about. But anyway, one of the fascinating fact about these cars is that instead of having the American V6s and V8s and V4s in them, they are all V3. And some of them have the options to purchase them with a turbo engine. And we're going to talk about turbochargers in a little bit, but more on these cars. What I find is that with my test driving, they had quite a bit of juice to them, to the contrary a belief that, small cars don't have a whole lot of juice, and that, they're just not fast cars, which is true. They're no sports cars by the stretch of any stretch. But what my findings were that they were anywhere between like 52 horsepower to like 65, even 68 horsepower in one case. And yeah.
Well, that's not very much compared to the U.S. cars, but what kind of environment did you drive it in? Was it like rural country roads or a city?
I've had both actually. One place I had the pleasure of driving in the city, but on a highway.
Okay.
So the speed limit was 55 miles an hour. I mean, I did push it. That thing, this particular car, is called Nissan Days Highway Star. So the highway means
the highway.
Yeah, Star of the Highway. Exactly. I mean, the car is loaded, jammed, packed with all these like features, unbelievable stuff. And I'll discuss that in a minute because I've got a little list going that I want to talk about that you would not find in our Chevy, Spark or similar, size cars here in America. I think the best small car I've seen here is the Ford Fiesta that has all kinds of features in it, even on the base models. But these cars, were so phenomenal. Like they had all these features, fancy, like brand new features that you find in like fancier cars. But what was surprising to me was that even at 55 miles an hour, speed limit zone, I pushed it and the thing had a turbo. It was turbocharged. It not instantly, but because as most engineers would know that the turbocharged sometimes have a lag.
Mm-hmm.
But when it did pick up, it picked up pretty hardcore. And I mean, I had 4 people, so it was me, my father, and a couple other guys in the car. Like an actual mechanic who works on cars, and then someone else. And the car drove like as if I expected to. I didn't see anything different, right? And then I also had an opportunity to drive it on a motorway, they call it. Like here we call it interstates. In Asia, their interstates are called motorways. And I had an opportunity to drive one of those for a good 50, 60 miles. And the speed limit there is 120 kilometers per hour, which is, I think, I don't know.
It's like 70 or
something like that. We should look that up. But while, I look that up, or why don't you look that up while I talk about this? The top speed of these cars is actually around 140 kilometers per hour, which kind of boils down to roughly 87 miles per hour top speed. And if you think about like a consumer car that's not really required to, do more than, your commuting and, your pleasure stuff, you don't really need even 80, I hope. I do know people who drive that fast. I'm not one of them. I don't like getting tickets.
Tickets are not good. So 120 is 75 miles per hour.
That's pretty decent.
Yeah.
And, you would think that a small car like that, because I've had, like my father always had smaller cars. My brother did too, and, they've all upgraded since then. But I had this small car. It's not available here in the United States, but it's called Suzuki Alto. An older version, 2005 version, when I would hit 100, it would be pretty comfortable. But 100 kilometers per hour.
Yep.
But when I would hit 120, it got a little funny.
A little wobbly?
A little wobbly, exactly. And for a brand new car, I was like, I'm not so sure if I should be driving at this speed, even though people do, It's just that it was out of my comfort level because I just didn't like that little bit of, lightness in the car. But the Nissan Days Highway Star or the this really beautiful, lovely looking car called Daihatsu Cast is the one that I drove on the highway, and the thing was just so comfortable and quiet. Another part was the quietness of these engines. Not only that they're small and with turbo, they're very, very, very efficient, in terms of their combustion and their carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm.
They're sold as eco-friendly engines, right? And not only that they were quiet, the car was quiet and comfortable, and it was just speedy. And at 120 kilometers per hour, 75 miles per hour, it did not feel like I was driving Chevy Spark.
Felt pretty solid, pretty safe.
Yeah. I have, my wife has a Chevy Spark. It's a, 2015 model. And when we drive it on a highway, when we hit 70 miles an hour sometimes, you hear all kinds of... First of all, it's really, really noisy. Maybe part of it is because of the tires. The tires were snow tires on it, so they're pretty loud. But it gets pretty loud. in that car, and not like comfortable feeling like the one I had with driving Alto. But one of the things that I noticed is, and let me go through a list. Can I go through a list of cars that the cars that that at least I have seen and noticed around that are of that caliber?
When you say around, you mean obviously probably not in the U.S., but just
this
on
is
the internet
all
and
this
Asia.
is all Asia.
Yeah.
These are all Japanese cars. They're made in Japan. They're exported all over the world. I mean,
Except
all
for
over Asia, except
yeah.
for U.S. You'd see them in Japan, China. You'd see them in India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, all these countries. Indonesia, all the way to Saudi Arabia. You'd see all these cars there.
I guess that's it too. They are pretty good-looking cars. They're not like ugly, weird-looking vehicles. I mean, they're pretty flashy-looking, pretty up-to-date with modern style looks.
Yeah, well, you're saying that because I've showed you some of the pictures.
Yes.
But our audience, let's tell them what these are. So I'll start with the most fanciest ones. One of the things that I really enjoyed driving and looking at was the Daihatsu Cast. And Cast has different models and different like trim packages, interior packages as well as exterior packages. And you can get them in 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, which is like really fancy for a small car like that. And if you guys want to, first of all, you would our podcast image is that car. It's in red color. This car, that size, if you look at it, I don't know what's the equivalent size of that. Maybe it's I don't know. It's bigger than your Toyota Yaris.
Okay.
It's bigger than that because headroom. That was another thing. Like I sat in there, and I'm almost 5'10", right? I'm actually 5'10.5", and I had this much room above my head.
He's showing roughly maybe a foot, 10 inches. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, sorry, because people who are watching videos will know.
He's making hand gestures.
Sometimes I forget that we're doing there's going to be a whole bunch of subscribers who are going to be doing audio, not video at all, because they're going to be listening to us while they're at their, desks.
Working away at their jobs.
Yeah.
Slaving for a 9 to 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Or flipping burgers.
Yeah.
Or whatever, whatever floats your boat, man. Whatever pays the bill. So there was leg room, one of the things that some of these cars had was like there was no divider in the middle. Like how
like center console?
Yeah, center. Well, no center console. You're right, and also like no hurdle, so like you could literally stretch your leg right and left, right? You know how like back.
I see.
Like, and it wasn't like flat seats either. It was you did have armrest in some of these cars, so you plop down. Like for example, the Alto did not have that feature, but Nissan Days had that feature, and so did like Mitsubishi. Well, let me go through the list, and then we'll talk about features in a second. Yeah. Sorry for that noise. I just bumped into my microphone. I'm getting excited about this. Can't you tell? All right. So first of all, I'm going to go through one of the most common or fancy models, which are by Daihatsu. So Daihatsu makes maybe a little low-end one that's called Daihatsu Mira. And the next one is Daihatsu Kopen and Kopen Zero. My favorite is Daihatsu Cast. Daihatsu Move is another one, which is very similar to some of the other cars we're going to mention. And then Daihatsu Mira and Daihatsu Mira Gino. These are the Daihatsu models. Let's jump into Honda models. Honda had Honda N1 and N1 wagon, and I think the only difference was the N1 wagon was a little taller, had a more ground clearance, and it had a door that opened up like a mini van.
Opened up like a sliding
like
door?
Sliding door.
Oh,
and it had like automatic too, like push button, open, close,
Yeah.
Oh, some of these had like the fully featured cars also had like you could push button even the trunk open. Because a lot of these are sort of like a hatchback style cars, with the exception of Mira and Alto.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Roomy, relatively for a small car. I mean, I was pretty impressed by them. And then after that, Honda Life was a pretty nice, like a sporty looking car. So, and then let's see, do we have? Oh yeah, and then a Honda Spark too. So Honda Spark, 2-door hatchback, is also in that category. Well, what makes these cars so different? We'll talk about it in a minute, but let me go through this list again. And then Mitsubishi EK Wagon, and then Mitsubishi Audi, OTTI. And then, as we mentioned, Nissan Days Highway Star. There's another one called Nissan Days. It's a plainer version of Nissan. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, even though it has more than the standard bells and whistles that I've seen in our Chevy Spark. And then you have Nissan Moco, or is it Moco?
I think so. That's
yeah. And then from there, I'm going to jump to Suzuki. Suzuki has been discontinued here in North America, at least in the U.S. I don't know about Canada, but Suzuki no longer does new cars here. But they're very big in East, and one of the really nice-looking cars that I really enjoyed test driving was a Suzuki Hustler. And that car was not a turbo. It was standard, engine. Which I'm gonna talk about that in a second, because that one is a big news that I'm about to come out with. Like your mind will be blown away with the size of those. With the size of these engines are. Maybe I've already mentioned the horsepower. Did I? I think
you mentioned the horsepower.
Oh man,
missed your opportunity.
Cat's out of the bag.
Yep.
Too late. So, and then obviously Alto, which is a signature of Suzuki Motors in the East, especially Southeast Asia. And so I think and then I do want to mention at least one that I know of. It's called Toyota Pixis. Toyota makes one of them. It's kind of like Suzuki Alto, smaller hatchback, 5-door car, 5 passengers. Every single one of them is a 5-passenger car. I think maybe Alto is the one. Oh yeah, I missed one. Suzuki makes another one. It's called Wagon R.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a boxy looking thing, but even for a boxy looking thing, like remember we had a Toyota Scion, like TC or something, or whatever it was.
I remember the Scion.
Yeah, and then Honda. Is it Honda
Element?
Element.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that shape, but it's smaller in size, right? I don't know, like 2/3 of the physical size. And it had good ground clearance, like 11 or 12 inches off the ground, which is pretty awesome. And you would appreciate that, especially coming from like where in East there are speed bumps everywhere in the cities, like speed breakers. But the surprising part was their miles per gallon, even though they're boxy looking cars, was pretty fascinating. So before we get into the the specific items that are like the features, right?
Yeah.
One of the most appealing thing is their engine size. So these engines are, like I said, is 3-cylinder engines. Some of them have turbocharger, which really gives us a lot more boost, like every other engine, like how we're used to here. But the fascinating fact of these so they're sold as 690 cc engines.
That's pretty small compared to our cars.
Well, so it's funny you say that, because motorcycle enthusiasts would know what a cc would mean in terms of when they go and buy a motorcycle. And a lot of Hondas and Kawasaki's and Yamahas and Ducatis and your Harleys, right? Well, Harleys I don't think start anything below 900 cc.
Yep.
But your Hondas, Kawasaki's, and others, they do have smallers, and I have seen the older versions as little as 500 cc's. And 750s and 900s, and I used to have a Kawasaki 900 that was like a cruiser motorcycle. And then my ex-girlfriend at the time had a Kawasaki. I don't recall what the but she had one of the low end sports motorcycles, and it was less than 100,000 cc's.
Even a lot of the dirt bikes are like 250, 400 cc.
Yeah,
Too. So I think those have a lot of the smaller engines.
that's interesting. I don't have experience with the dirt bikes. Well, probably depends on what kind of dirt bike it is, right? Some kids, probably the ones that are for young boys, this is probably 250 or something like that.
Kids, I guess like really little kids, maybe
50,
10 and stuff. Yeah, like 50 cc. 250 is actually, you can get pretty. Those are good for adults too. I think they do. I think that you can do like the 2-stroke or 4-stroke. And so I think with the 250 you can get a lot of power, and they're still bigger bikes. But then the 450s would be obviously a lot more power, a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Honda makes a motorcycle that's 70 cc. So you do need a helmet in a lot of states, and not in New Hampshire.
It's like a moped or something?
Nope. It's a full motorcycle. And if you want to look at some funny pictures of 5-6 people on one motorcycle, you should go to Google right now and type in Honda 70cc. And apparently it did.
Google? What?
Oh, damn, Google. Screw Google. Can we say screw on this podcast?
It's too late now.
Oops. I was trying to avoid that SHIT word the whole time. And then something else replaced it. So yes, guys, no, don't go to Google. Go to DuckDuckGo. Use Firefox. Don't use Chrome. And there's another topic for another podcast. How to set up your browser. Well, I'll tell you what, easy one. Go to privacytools.io. This is not an advertisement for them because they're not paying us.
Not yet.
But they're open source or, like voluntarily helping people out anyway. So there you go. Get a nice plug-in, privacytools.io. But you can figure out how to plug in, what browsers to use and what to plug in, and what to use for search engine. So if you go to Honda, Joe, go Honda CD70, like, Cat Delta 70. And then go to images. And if that doesn't work, just type in, like, next to it, type in India or Pakistan.
Probably need that last word.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just get pictures of the bike.
No.
It's still mostly pictures of the bike.
Oh, man. Say 5 people on the motorcycle. There are so many. I should probably find and put it in the show notes page. We're getting sidetracked here.
A little bit.
Yeah. That's okay. We've got plenty of time. So, there's some dead air.
If you just do India, 5 people on motorcycle, you get lots of pics.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about right there. Let me see. Can I see some? Yes, that's it. Yeah, I've actually seen recently on a Twitter, some guy had a calf, like a cow's baby, and he had it up front on one of those small motorcycles, and I'll show you that later on, Joe. But the guy was sitting in the back, and the little calf is in front of it, and he's got his hands on the. And I have my hands stretched out, you guys, but like as far as I can. And then he was driving his motorcycle, and then some guy who was in the car or something is like video recording him and talking to him. Was like, what do you do? What are you doing? He's like, I'm just taking this to the blah blah blah. And he's like not even looking straight ahead, is looking his neck turned, and he's talking to the guy in the car, and he's just driving.
Not
away.
Even watching the road.
Yeah, I gotta show you because
cruising on.
Yeah, because my wife showed it to me. And that was pretty awesome.
That's
but I've seen that actually physically happen with like a smaller animal, like maybe like a sheep or something, like a goat. But anyway, so I don't know where I lost the chain of thought
You're
here.
Just rambling over there.
I am rambling.
One thing I would like to interject on when you're going over the cars, I was amazed how many of these are available in 4-wheel drive.
Yes.
That's something I found, I was here looking for cars, especially for like all-wheel drive or a good winter car. The amount of, I guess, all-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive cars was very limited. It was like, you do Subaru, you get this, whatever, one of the minis, their larger one has 4-wheel or all-wheel drive. Maybe then a few other cars, and that was it. And then you go through the list you had, I'm sure over half of them had 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, for a small car like that, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then the ground clearance is pretty good.
Yep.
So not only that some of these have really awesome head height, the ground clearance was, pretty decent compared to some of our cars, Like I had the, STS, and it was so low, like barely had any, ground clearance.
Yeah.
That's
Very
Cadillac
handy in
STS.
the snow.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. So a couple, I like to give a couple of examples. So one of the ones that we talked about, let's talk about it again, is the Highway Star, Nissan's Highway Star. And by the way, folks, this podcast is not an advertisement for any of these manufacturers or their cars. It's just a conversation to have that, we find it fascinating that, why is America obsessed with gas guzzlers? That's all. So they have a 659cc engine. They call it 660, rounded up, right? And the engine inside the hood is actually made by Mitsubishi, and the engine series is 3B20, and for turbo, just add T at the end. So it'll be 3B20T. And they're 3-cylinder engines, and the displacement is only 0.7 liters, not even 1 liter. And in the turbo model, you would have a compression a ratio of 8:1 compared to a standard model, which is 10:1. And we're probably not going to get into the compression ratios. Sometimes like you would see that in a turbocharged, they'll have it's all about volumetric space inside the engine, and so sometimes less space with turbo means more, more efficiency and more power, more horsepower. Because now the air mixing, I'm getting into the turbocharger nitty gritty, but what it boils down to is that it allows it to produce, burn, gases efficiently and produce more horsepower, and then not have a vacuum or some like a empty spot inside the chamber. So, and the other example I want to give is my favorite of all is the Daihatsu Cast, which is also 658cc, and then this one has its own engine. Daihatsu/Toyota makes this engine called KE-DET 13-T, and that T represents turbo. But if you didn't have a turbo, then it'll just stop at 13. And that engine is available from 52 horsepower to 63 horsepower. So 63 will be the one that's turbo, and then the 52 is for the range of non-turbo engines. And the Nissan Daystars was a little better on the standard. It is 56 horsepower, and then on a turbo it is 64. And similarly, the Hustler. Joe, what does a Hustler looks like? You remember? Hustler almost looks like our FJ, right? Toyota
does,
FJ,
yes,
but a smaller version of it.
Yep.
And actually, when I sat inside it, if you looked at all the liners and the seating, it almost looked like FJ, and you could actually hose it off, kind of. The salesman could not confirm that for me, but it kind of looked like it. So I was pretty impressed with how, and roomy. I was so impressed. I think among all the cars that we're going to mention today, or we have mentioned today, the highest ground clearance was with the Suzuki Hustler.
It looks like it has a lot more window space than the FJ Cruiser as well.
Yeah, FJ. So
Probably
my
get to
wife's
see what's
driven
going on around you.
Exactly. My wife's driven FJ Cruiser of a family friend who has one, and she says that the visibility in that vehicle is awful. It's very awful. So anyway, those are some of the fascinating facts. But what's more fascinating is that you're getting from standard to a turbo, you're getting from a city, you're getting about 42 and a half miles per gallon in a city to 52 miles per gallon on the highway, and 51.7 to be specific for the Nissan Days Highway Star, and that's a lot of a gas mileage saving, compared to some of the cars. Okay, I've seen our Chevy Spark does about 42 miles to a gallon, right? So with no features, it has nothing. It's like empty, bare bones, right? What are the features that these cars come with is beyond So I'm gonna pick the best one, and I'm gonna talk about the worst one, which is the Alto, in my opinion.
Worst, like feature-wise?
Feature-wise, like less
overall?
features, more features. Not where I mean, actually, no, that's not true, because even Alto comes with all different, styles that you can pick from. But the one that I drove, actually, the bare minimum features that I drove was the Daihatsu Mira. Mira almost looks like Alto, and that one had basic features, but it still had more than what my wife's Spark has, right? So I'm still pretty fast, and the price difference is so phenomenal. It's beyond, like, it's amazing.
Yeah, the prices of these, it is for like a decent loaded package. I mean, it's 15,000, something like that, compared to probably over 20 for around here.
So I know I looked at the used one, which is 2018, and it had like less than 20,000 miles on it, and they were selling it for 13,500 rupees, which boils down to, I'm gonna do it as of today. So let's see. Nope, that's 10 too much. So 135,000, and on a current rate, that's $9,200 plus minus.
That's a very good deal for a nice, efficient car like that.
Right. I mean, it was used. Granted, it was used, and it had a little bit of, some accident history or something like that. But you wouldn't tell by looking at the car.
Yep.
It's pretty reconditioned, pretty awesome. But this is a particular car, and I'm sure that the brand new price is higher. It's hard to find online, these prices.
Yeah.
You can find them in other languages if you know Japanese. You can find it pretty easily, but in U.S., well, maybe you can switch your VPN.
I found a couple that posted U.S. prices.
Yeah, brand new or used?
Brand new.
2019s.
Yes.
Yeah. Another thing that I found is, like, they have brand new cars available, like 0 meter. 0 meter means like there are 0 mileage driven on these cars, right?
Yep.
And as old as 2016 models, they're still available. So you can
That'd
pick
be a
those
hell
up.
of a deal.
Yeah, I'm sure that you find a hell of a deal. Like, if a brand new is 15, I'm sure that a 2016 is somewhere around 12 or 10 or something like that. Obviously every car is different. We're generalizing here, but you get the picture. Like, what are the things that that you notice? And another great feature, or in a new technology relatively, that is the Cvt transmissions. They are constantly variable transmissions. So it's not like you sit in a car, a manual car or automatic car, and then your standard naturally aspired engines with your standard transmissions. What you see is every time a gear shifts, you kind of can tell. I mean, it's smooth, in a good car you can't even tell, but if you're paying attention, you can tell, like, okay, I've gone from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3. I always in my head I'm like looking at that,
counting it up.
Yeah, like I'm waiting for it. Like, where is it? Because you can kind of see the RPM goes up, and then right when it changes, it drops. It drops 1,000 RPM or 500 or something like that, and then it ramps up again until it's all the way to this top gear, right? And then that's where your RPM is adjusted to your speed.
Yep.
So, I noticed that, and it's a good feature. I mean, there's a lot of complaints about that it's harder to fix maybe. Right, but mechanics, right?
Yeah. Keep them employed.
Yeah, but if it's small, it's easier to swap out.
Yeah,
I'm
probably
just saying,
cheaper.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I asked a mechanic. I said, all right, this is Daihatsu Mira 2010, and I think 2012 maybe 2012. Nope, sorry, 2016.
Okay.
I see so many cars, test driven so many that I mix them up. 2016, and I said, suppose that, because it was the engine, something was wrong with its engine. It was making us, it was over revving, even at especially in the lower gears. So I asked him, something wrong with this engine, how much? He said that you find a used engine for that same car, 25,000 rupees, which is, I'm going to find that out right now. I should do this in my head. Not used to it anymore. $170 US. Can you believe that?
That's
And I
cheap.
think that to swap it out over there, it's probably another like $50. You know,
So,
in the labor.
I mean,
Labor is cheap.
under what, 200, 250 for a new engine is
Yeah,
that's
complete
a great
swap
deal.
out.
I mean,
Yeah. I'm sure there is like some, you know, like you have to reprogram, you know, certain
yeah,
electronics and so forth.
even under 500 is you probably, I can't imagine what it would cost here to do a similar engine swap.
Yeah.
Probably at least a couple hundred for labor.
Yes. No, much more than that.
Yeah.
No way. Yeah, much more than that.
Zero.
But you know, because of their smaller size, it's, you know, it's easier to swap out everything. you
Yeah.
know.
I'm sure
They'll-
all the maintenance.
all
is
these cars are
probably
lightweight.
easier.
Didn't you have a spreadsheet where you kind of put the sizes in?
I did for some of the ones I found. A lot of them were in that like 2,000 pound range, give
Yeah.
or take.
I'm seeing like the lowest, smallest, and 1,606 pounds.
Yeah.
What is this? 730 weight in kilograms. Okay. So
Yeah, I had to convert some units in there.
Yeah. Well, rule of thumb is times 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's gives you a general
I think that's what I
ballpark.
ended up doing.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Generally, we don't need to be in too specific of how much that would be. But, you know, from 52 miles per gallon, you know, and then eco idling, which some people,
Is that when it shuts off? when it's
Yes.
idle? Okay.
yeah, so or it goes into like it shuts off most of the cylinders, it keeps one firing or something like that. And you know, some people hate that feature. They're just not used to it. But you know, for even if it's not for environment, maybe it's good for fuel economy,
Mhm.
right? It keeps your gas usage to the bare minimum.
Especially if you're like stopped at a lot of red lights. I could see how it's both useful, but maybe also a little annoying. Depends how quickly it turns back on or kicks up to full gear.
Yeah.
If you're waiting, then maybe it is. But
So my one of the cars that was fully loaded, like completely loaded, I was blown away. I almost bought it, you know.
which one was this?
This was the Nissan Days Highway Star.
Uh,
This was before I had seen the cast.
okay.
After I saw the cast, it's like, no way, I'm buying the cast.
Then you're blown away by that one.
I was blown away by the looks of it.
Yeah.
It may not have all the features. It actually didn't. One feature that Nissan did, Highway Star had, this cast I did not find it. I'm sure that there probably is a package, but I didn't. You know, I only looked at 3 or 4 of those. You know,
What was your favorite feature of the
Nissan Days.
yeah.
It was 360 view. So you put your car in a reverse,
Mm-hmm.
or there's like a toggle button, and on the screen. So there are 2 options. Some models have the full package model has the in-dash, you know, nav, flash, you know, rear view camera, whatever.
Yep.
That gives you the rear view, right, with the sensors, right? So, and you know, like standard, you know, backup, but it also has these cameras. There are 2 cameras on the side of your folding mirrors. So it has folding mirrors, and they're, you know, now that your vehicle started, so they automatically pop open. Right at the bottom or at the bottom corner of them, there are 2 cameras. And then behind the back 2 doors of the car, on top of the car, there are 2 more cameras, right? That are looking on the side. So you get and then you have a camera in the front of the car, somewhere. I don't know where exactly. I think it's above above the windshield, above your, you know, rear view camera. So it's up there.
Yep.
There are 2 things up there. There's like a GPS sensor, and then the other. No. GPS sensor is in the front grille, but the camera's there, and so it gives you a 360 degree everything that's around your car within the distance. Where if you open the door or you trying to cut your car, what is there a cat there? Is there a baby there? Is there a human there? Is there another car you're gonna hit? A bicycle? Anything like a curb on the side of the road or something like that.
Is this only in reverse that it comes on?
I believe so. I think it might actually have a feature that you can actually turn it on while
Okay.
you're parked.
Yeah.
I don't think it does when you're driving.
Okay.
No, that's a distraction, I think. So they wouldn't allow that. But, you know, it does come on. And on top of that, one of the things that I really was, you know, giggling about is that every time like something was in a way or something like that, the car would talk to you, as if like there's another person telling to you.
Like, watch out, Goshe.
No, I wish it did say that, but
Yeah.
it didn't. Except it was in Japanese.
Ah.
There's not a word I could understand.
Be neat if you could program it to kind of customize what to say, or
Yeah.
if it would be smart enough.
Where's
to
the
learn.
Microsoft translator when you need them?
Exactly.
Screw Google Translator.
You're right. Microsoft, so much better.
So much better. Not really. We're just joking. Maybe one day open source will come about. Maybe they already do, Joe. We don't know.
We could be behind.
We could be behind. You and I just haven't looked that up yet.
No.
So that was the feature that I didn't find in any other car, at least the ones that I drove. It doesn't mean that they were not available, but they,
Did they have that auto assist, like the lane assist stuff, where you can more or less do autopilot?
Some cars do have that. I didn't see it being used, especially when I was driving that Nissan Days Highway Star. So maybe. Because I do know that, say, if someone approaches behind you and getting too close to you, the computer will talk to you. The computer will start, and that happened to me, even in the city. And you can turn it off. You can turn that feature off.
You get too close, or someone?
I got close to something.
Yeah.
Right. There is a radar sensor in front of the car that is a special name for it. I think it's called GPS sensor for braking, or like anti-collision assist. Yeah, that's the technical name. I wrote it down because I knew I would forget. So the anti-collision assist is also a turn on-off feature. It's like a switch, right at the underneath the steering to the right, and you can turn these features off. Some of them are optional, some of them are not.
It's good that if you can turn it off, so you're not, especially in cities, just stuck with beeping.
Yeah, because
or Japanese people speaking to
you, exactly. Yeah. So that, but overall, these features are perfect for someone who needs them or wants them, and if you can turn them off, then it's great. Although Pakistanis are pretty expert in like changing electronics,
so probably customize it how you want.
Yeah. You can add these features if you're missing one. You can get aftermarket stuff and then get it installed in your cars for dirt cheap.
Because I see, like, if you're, I don't know how prevalent parallel parking is everywhere, but if you're parallel parking, you could get like a 360 view of yourself as you're doing it. That'd probably help a lot of people. And
that's what I was fascinated with, because my father, he's not, he's getting old, and I wanted that feature for him.
Yeah.
Because he's notorious for hitting motorcycle when like his side mirrors are always like turning and braking because he hits stuff.
Yep.
Small little bumps, but he does that. With that feature, I know he'd get much better. He'd probably get reliant on it, so the next car wouldn't be.
It would need it.
He would need it, but I was just thinking like, if we're gonna go spend this much money, might as well get with all the features.
Yep.
Keyless entries were common with all these cars. Push start was another thing. Like, so you don't have to have you stick the key into the door to open the doors. For most of these cars. So automatic lights. Most of these have fog lights. Some didn't. Front camera, like I mentioned. Rear cameras, 360 camera view. Navigation was not a standard and all, but if it was a fully packaged car, it did.
Okay.
So that was pretty sweet. Auto folding mirrors and some, and then like if you go in Asia, you would find that in some countries like India, Pakistan, and similar, they make cars that may or may not have airbags. But the Japanese cars, all these imported cars, they all have 4 to 6, maybe more airbags.
Okay.
I didn't really look in too much into how many airbags. All I care was the front too, because that's
front, maybe side.
Yeah, I don't know.
Really,
I don't know. Alto only has like the domestic made Alto in Pakistan only has front 2 airbags. It does not come with the side. So I really didn't look at that too much. But traction control, similar features. All they had. One of the other things is that the things that maybe you mentioned is the heat warmers, Joe.
Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite. I guess living
where you live.
Where we live, yeah. I'm in a cold area where you can get to your car and it's freezing. I've found the heat warmers to be I don't know.
Is Japan a cold country or is a warm country?
I think in the north they have, obviously they get snow, mountains, so that's probably cold. Maybe it's not as. I'm sure if you go north, you can probably find areas as cold as here, but maybe typically it's not.
Well, there is a reason why they're making these 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Right? So if they're making these four-wheel drive, they're making them, for a certain environment.
Yep.
Right? Certain terrain.
Yeah, they wouldn't be making 4-wheel drive if it was all just paved,
Yeah.
dry
Yeah.
cities and stuff like that.
Yeah, it would just defeat the purpose.
Yep.
This makes no sense.
Maybe I don't know if they have a lot of dirt roads over there too, but yeah, they must get snow in those areas, and I'm sure maybe
and they might
the European markets too.
Yeah, they might have the seated heated seats.
Do you know if these cars are common in Europe?
So I have had a pleasure of traveling in Europe as well, and when I went to England, for instance, and I was driving around, I saw a whole bunch of different car manufacturers I've never seen before. Some of them are Chinese manufacturers, some of them are European manufacturers, and a lot of them are small cars. Small cars like these, like like the ones that I'm mentioning. And you know anyone who's been to England or Scotland or Ireland would attest to that, because they have standard cars too, like American. Actually, British people love Jeep Cherokees. I've seen a lot of that when I was there.
I wonder why.
I don't know. It's nice looking.
Yeah, they are. That's are any of the cars on this list Chinese?
No, but I do know of a car that they import in Pakistan. It's Chinese, and it's also 660cc.
Okay.
Only caveat with that car I saw is that it's not an automatic. All these cars, by the way, are automatic, fully automatic with CVT transmission. That particular one was a manual car. Little less on the price point, but as fancy as these cars, and it's got all the features. Not like the Nissan Days Highway Star, not those crazy 360-degree cameras.
Yep.
And not as nice looking as Daihatsu Cast, but decent. I did look at one of them. I did not test drive it. Part of the reason because I didn't want to do stick shift in a busy city. I'm not everyday stick shift driver. But yeah, no, that's a good point. So, I mean, we talked a lot about, cars and, their features and everything. And my question to you, Joe, is then are you now ready to switch from your Escalade to a Cast or maybe a Hustler or something?
You've convinced me.
Yeah?
I do see a lot of great value in those cars. I would say, if they were available in our area, I would definitely consider it. I mean, I think the pros, they're much more, what's the word? I don't know. Convenient, I guess, for our typical day-to-day lives, what we do. They're small. I don't need a giant vehicle. You could put a rack on top, I'm sure. For
yes. Some of them, like Hustler,
snowboards
default comes with one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those would be great. You could probably take it camping, fit all your stuff. I'm sure. I think some. I don't know if they have any hitches or not, but you could toss like a kayak on top pretty easily.
Most of the cars that are boxy looking, the seats were foldable. You could completely flatten the whole thing.
So there you go. I mean, probably lots of storage space.
Yeah, like if you're bringing picture frames or laundry or something, you could literally fold these up and without a problem. Sports goods, whatever.
I'm sure I could get my spinners in a smaller size. And
yeah, that's another thing. Like smaller the wheel size, the less money you have to pay for a tire.
Which is nice because then if you want, especially with those, granted you get 4-wheel drive, but you could probably get your snow tires and some sort of 3-season tire for not much more than just a pair of very big tires.
Joe, here's a fact. I don't care where you stand on or people stand on, it's irrelevant where you stand on environment and protecting the environment and the climate change. Doesn't matter where you stand on it. What makes sense is that you, as an individual who's concerned about his well-being and his economics, right? His wallet, his or her wallet. You want to pay less for gasoline. You want to pay less for repairs. You want to pay less for maintenance. You want to pay, you want to be able to maintain your stuff better, right? You cannot get Prius in a 4-wheel drive. You cannot get Honda Civic in a 4-wheel drive. You cannot get Chevy Spark or Ford Fiesta type of cars, the small cars in a 4-wheel drive. You can get these in 4-wheel drive at half the engine size. I mean, Ford Fiesta is 110 or 105 horsepower, whereas the Chevy Spark standard, manual car is at 84 horsepower.
Plus, I think a lot of these, they get the turbo. So, I mean, you can still get that
The
kind
boost.
of fun, zippy car feel
Yeah.
without really paying for it all.
I hope that they, one of these cars came with like a supercharger.
Yeah.
But, then it would be maybe faster, but not necessarily as efficient as your turbocharger. I want to talk about turbocharger a little bit. Is that okay, Joe? Can I get into that?
Let's hear
So I know that we've thrown around a lot of terms here, and, turbocharger versus, supercharger and, naturally aspired and, stuff like that. So your average engines are usually naturally aspired. And what that means is that when your engine is running, the gases that are coming into inside your engine are driven naturally, right? As your car moves, the air, as the pistons move up and down, especially when they're down in the down position, that creates a vacuum. Think of it as like a syringe, right? You have it all the way up. When you start to pull, even in the water or outside water, it starts to pull water in, right? So that's a natural phenomena that happens with the suction of that, syringe / engine. But on the turbocharger engines, it's actually mechanically driven. And what it is that turbochargers are these devices that are run on, exhaust from your engine, right? And it's got, the way it's made is that one of the impellers are inside the airstream of your exhaust that's coming out of your, what is exhaust? Exhaust is when your, the gases, your gasoline and the oxygen is mixed and compressed, and then an explosion happens inside the engine. That compression, after the compression cycle, you get these hot gases that are then, burn into smoke, and carbon, and that comes out of your exhaust pipe. So this impeller is injected inside the exhaust airstream, and it spins. So because of that force, right? So it's utilizing that free energy from the exhaust side, and on the opposite end of it is also got a fan blade, right? And that fan blade is now moving. The way it's designed is that actually draws air in, right? And the way it draws air in, it compresses air better. So so it's a compression process that it goes through, right? And so it compresses the air, and then it mixes that air into with your gasoline into your engine compartment, which is the chamber, so that the combustion, it improves the efficiency of the combustion. In other words, am I going the right direction there?
Yes.
So far.
Yep.
So when that happens, you get more horsepower because as compared to the naturally inspired engines, the air was not as compressed as it is with turbochargers, right? When air is more compressed and is also forced in instead of naturally coming in, the volumetric efficiency of your engine improves drastically. And so because there is no more empty space, and also, in some of these turbochargers, the way they're designed is that some of the hot gases are introduced right back into the engine compartment from the hot side. So there's a cold side and a hot side. So what that allows to do, so not only that it is increasing the horsepower of your engine. What is a horsepower? The ability of a car to move car at a certain power, at a certain speed. And that's just a layman term. But when you mix the some of the hot gases that from the exhaust, now you bring them back in. What that allows is, with the compressed air, what that does is that it actually, if there is any chance that there's unused, unburnt gasoline in the engine compartment, it completely burns it. So it improves your fuel efficiency by doing so.
Kind of no waste fuel.
Yes. So your emissions improve drastically, and your engine has more power, more juice, so that you can accelerate on a rapid phase, speed, and you're good for environment.
I know that's kind of off topic, but not too much. in our like I guess industry with boilers and gas turbines and stuff for people who want to do their combined heat plants, they call it lean fire, I think, where you kind of have excess air almost so that you burn all of your products of combustion. And so I guess it's a more efficient way to do it, and like you said too, less waste, less emissions.
Yeah, and I mean in turbochargers, they're primarily used, they're used in a lot of automotives, today, but they're really used in aircrafts.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you're at certain height, up there, the pressure is drastically reduced. So the natural intake of the air is just not enough for you to have a proper combustion so that the engines can operate.
Mm-hmm.
So there, the turbochargers are used, right? Either turbochargers or, yes, turbochargers. So they're used so that you can, get proper oxygen inside the engine for proper combustion. And I mean, other uses is also like your boats. Engines in boats also have that feature.
Do they really?
Yeah, a lot of boats have that. I don't know if every boat has that, but I've heard that,
Probably maybe cigarette boats or something that want to just crank it up.
Yeah, like speedy boats.
Yeah.
You definitely want the turbo installed in them. So, I just wanted to touch on that so that people understand what that was. And I didn't want to throw, terms at them. But one of the things that I also noticed in a 2019 model recently is that Nissan Day's Highway Star does have a hybrid version of their car that is available from Japan. And what's fascinating about that part was that it was doing 67.2 miles per gallon.
Jeez,
and they call it like a S hybrid model. So I'm not sure what S stands for.
Sport?
Sure, maybe. Yeah.
But over 60s, I mean, that's great.
Yeah, so they have got, electric,
amazing,
batteries in it, and you've got a, a hybrid model going. So you've got a motor that's probably the same, turbo model. And I mean, it's a beautiful looking car.
Mm-hmm.
They've changed it quite a bit, but still has all the features. And
I do have a question for you. So I know sometimes people, obviously, they like their cars. They like to get the flashy cars and stuff like that. What do you, I don't know. Do you ever see people that maybe would want to spend over $100,000 on a car that gets under 20 miles a gallon? Do you see that they would somehow be tempted to go with one of these cars? I mean, obviously, for them, money is probably not an issue, so paying, I don't know, filling up with gas every couple days is probably
hell with those dorks, man.
Minor to them.
I don't know. Honestly, mean, you drive an Escalade, you're convinced.
I do.
Yeah, I used to drive an SDS. I'm convinced to go down to a smaller car that's more efficient and more fun to drive.
Yeah.
My Fiesta, the Ford Fiesta that I have, it's fast.
Yep.
I mean, look at the ST models of any of the Ford Fiesta. There's a special race for that. You can get some upgrades and, why not?
Why not?
But I think that one of the things people may have complained about is like, oh, they want more room, even though their only butts are only so wide and they only sit in so much,
This is America. We do have big butts over there. Some of us, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
No, are there Chinese that have the big wrestlers that like the
sumo wrestlers? Japanese.
They're Japanese. See, Japanese have big butts too.
I think Japanese.
Now what? See, no more excuse there.
Right, you probably get one per car.
I'm sure that you can upgrade, your suspension, even though I had no complaints. Where I was driving, there are some rough roads, and I was pretty comfortable with some of these cars' suspensions. Like, it was like almost a luxury car experience.
I think you made a good point. I mean, kind of comparing it to the Coopers, those are small cars, but fast, kind of known for a little, like, sporty style.
Maybe Mazda Miata is pretty small.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people love it. People with money love it.
Yep.
I mean, and then there are some sports versions. I just, I didn't write down their names for this podcast, but the, these same manufacturers do make certain sports models. if anybody's interested in looking those up. But let's talk a little bit about how do you feel about hybrids versus the cars that are already doing. I mean, if you're doing 65 miles to a gallon with a hybrid car, how do you feel about the car that's almost at 52 miles per gallon, and at a fraction of a cost of a hybrid? Where do you see value in that?
Well, I would say with the hybrids, I guess comparing it that way, that's kind of a tough one to do. I would have to go maybe, if you look at all electric cars, you could kind of look at where they're more appropriate or benefits of having all electric cars in some places versus others. For example, like, let's just take cities, where you have maybe like New York City, LA, China, big cities like Beijing and stuff like that, where you have millions of people driving. If you have, a couple 100,000 combustion engines producing smoke, obviously you get some cities that get issues with smog and air quality becomes a concern. One way to perhaps mitigate that is just, if people have electric cars, you kind of transfer that power generation outside of cities. Maybe you make it to power plants outside that could be more efficient on a large scale instead of hundreds of thousands of tiny ones. And you're maybe not changing emissions too much, but you get it outside of the cities, and that might help promote better air quality in your cities, which could have more positive effects. Maybe you'll encourage people to get out more. I guess it might be a quieter area too. You don't have all the, noise from combustion going around.
Yeah. Let me be a devil's advocate here.
Sure.
It takes, roughly 5 minutes on average, maybe plus minus, to fill a gas tank.
Mm-hmm.
How long does it take to fill up a battery?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure it could take hours. I know that they do have, I think, like fast charging stations.
How many? I mean, you're talking, you have
Probably
gas
not many.
stations every couple of blocks in the cities, right? Now you're talking the entire cities with hybrid cars.
Yep.
You're not going to have enough room to charge these stations.
I think that's like even one of my last trips to Boston, in the parking garage there, I don't know, you might get like 1 or 2 parking spots that have electric charging in a parking garage that has hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 parking spots. So it's maybe a percent, less than a percent of the spaces. I was thinking, obviously, one thing maybe people could do, I don't know how it would work with the actual logistics, but like portable charging stations where you might get someone who has a pickup truck with, obviously, maybe bunch of batteries or some like major batteries, more industrial storage, where they can go around during the day, and while people are at work, come by and charge their car for them while they're not there, or just some convenience services like that to make it a little bit more doable for people to get their car charged. I would have to say the days of free car charging is probably going to be over as more people do it, because it's going to become unaffordable to just give it out. And obviously, like states that have the gas tax, they'll have to figure a way to probably get some money out of all the people that have electric cars, so then they can...
You mean rob people more?
Yeah, yep. Find other ways to rob them. I guess that's, because then...
Well, you made a good...
tons of issues with that as well, but...
Yeah. You made a good point about the portable charging station chargers. So if suppose that there is a thing as a portable charger that comes along, obviously the market will provide if there is a demand for it.
Yep.
If it gets to be that point, what then can happen is that it's easier for a garage, administration to provide wall outlets than to provide, charge stations.
Yep.
So if everyone can have a built-in portable charge station that's built into the cars, maybe, right? Then all you do is just plug it into the wall, maybe.
Yeah.
Right? How do you meter it is another question, and I'm sure that the market can provide that solution when time comes.
Yep.
But that's interesting you say that, and that it reminds me a little bit about the gasoline, petroleum crisis in third world countries, especially like Southeast Asia and Asia, including China, Japan, because a lot of these countries don't produce a whole lot of oil. They're probably produce around 20, 25, 30% of their own oil, but then the rest of it is, imported from, oil countries like Saudi Arabia and whatnot. And so when that happened, and this is like early 90s, I vividly remember that because of the crisis, market providers provided a solution which is called Cng Kits. And Cng stands for compressed natural gas kits that people could install in their vehicles, from third-party vendors for a very small cost. And I think, if I remember correctly, my brother had it installed in somewhere around 2004 or 5. That cost him about $300 or $350 to get the whole kit installed. And the kit, what it did is that, you have a gas cylinder, of certain size. I don't know, I'm guessing maybe like a 10 to a 15 gallon cylinder that's in the trunk of your car. And you've got a toggle switch right underneath, in your dashboard somewhere, where, you can literally switch your car to natural gas, compressed natural gas, and run your gas on that. And in 90s when that thing started, some people started to get them, and then the gas stations where you could get natural gas were sparse. They were far in between. And all of a sudden, in the next 5 to 10 years now, in the countries like Pakistan and India, every other gas station is a compressed natural gas station.
I just want to ask you a quick. So these are kind of like dual fuel cars. They could do
they're factory. So
typical gas and compressed natural gas.
Yes, correct. So the cars, their engines are specifically designed for just, to operate on unleaded fuel.
Mm-hmm.
But the market, the capitalism that we have learned to hate so much has come out with a solution.
Capitalism's horrible.
And the market, forces provided the solution, and they said, look, we have natural gas, we have abundance of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Especially Pakistan, I can speak for. And so they installed these kits in the car for really cheap, right? I mean, the people were paying, $10,000, $11,000 to buy a car. Actually, at the time, the Alto you could buy a brand new one for $650,000, which is about $6,000 at the time. And so you could buy that car for $6,000. Shitty car, don't buy it. But no airbags, nothing. But anyway, you could at least get a CNG installed. So when the oil crisis when the gas prices went $4 a gallon, they're like, screw you, we're gonna fill this up with compressed natural gas. Now, I did hear, cannot confirm it because that's people talking, not engineers testing, but people did say that the horsepowers, they could feel a difference. It dropped a little bit. So, and they performed just fine. I mean, the car's still running. They have dual gas systems. My brother have a Honda Civic with both hybrid.
So is the main draw just, I guess, the convenience? You could have it at home and cost, kind of, I guess?
I don't think it's allowed there to have a filling station at home.
Okay.
Even though there is a market solution, like there's a small scale compressor machine that actually can take your natural gas supply and then compress it into a compressed natural gas, and you can fill it. But I know that in USA EPA does not approve it, and I have not seen it. I've years ago I looked it up. I think I was writing a paper, and I looked it up and did some research on it. It was very small. It was the size of a 20-inch television that was mounted on a wall. It was like an electrical panel, size of an electrical panel.
That is kind of it's interesting, just thinking that you could. I mean, because a lot of areas, at least in the U.S., you can get natural gas to your house. If you could have a little compressor station,
But we're anti-fracking, Joe.
I know.
We hate
horrible.
We hate fossil fuels. We hate everything that could save us money and environment.
Right?
Right? We love the monopoly of the OPEC. That's
yes.
Petroleum,
something countries.
Yeah. Something.
Something.
Yeah. We'll have to look that up. Sorry, guys. We didn't plan this, obviously.
Nope.
This just came up. But OPEC, has a monopoly over how, they price, gasoline.
That's very interesting. I guess another bonus of these more efficient cars, if you want to take it to a different area, you kind of lessen your overall demand and need. So it could make it easier for smaller countries to fit more of their, I guess, transportation costs with just less gas, half than some nations probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a conversation, the broader conversation. Even though, Joe, you've been running your mouth for 1 hour and 10 minutes. But time flies when you're having fun.
There's one more thing actually I would like to say.
Yeah.
Thinking kind of back to I guess with cities and stuff, these are lighter cars, and lighter cars will have less impact on your roads. If you think about it, I mean, could make your roads last longer. Just general wear and tear will be less.
What do you say to a Patriot who's got a big pickup truck with a lift on it?
Yeah.
And an exhaust pipe that smokes, and at the back tail it says, "Not a Democrat." How do you convince that guy?
I would say that might be a lost cause to try to convince it.
You know how I convince them? This is how on my smaller car, I will put a bumper sticker or a decal that say, "Don't worry, I'm saving for ammo."
Yep.
That's how you'd convince them.
I like
There's
that.
always a way, Joe.
There is.
Awesome.
Very good.
Yeah, I think that's all I had for cars, man. I think I would. If American can let me bring one of them casts, I'd have it tomorrow.
I guess that's it. I mean, that whole whatever's stopping it.
But come on, we're just started the tariff wars.
Yep. Oh man, was it lately? Something about Toyota being a threat to our national security because they make better trucks than we do. I mean, I think that's what it is. The Tacoma is a very wanted truck, from what I've understood. And
Toyota Corolla is the most sold car in the world, and Toyota Land Cruiser is the most sold full-size SUV in the world. Beat that, suckers.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm just doing free publicity for Toyota right now. They should pay us.
They should.
Someone should pay us, Joe.
I would like that.
You have a Bitcoin address?
I can make one.
All right, good.
Yep.
We should share one.
We should start getting our funding.
Yeah, exactly.
Grants and all that stuff.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up unless you have something else to say.
I am good.
Thanks for listening, you guys. This has been fun.
Yeah. Is the video on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's been recording.
So we got it.
You comfortable enough, Joe?
Yes.
I don't want you to hurt your back. That'd be bad. The microphone obviously is not set up yet.
It's there you go.
You good?
Yeah. Yep.
You sure? You messing with me, man.
Is this on?
Yeah, it is on.
Okay.
Can you hear you?
No. Maybe I can. Maybe.
Is your volume down?
It shouldn't be.
So you can't hear me.
Now I hear you. Okay, now I do hear.
Oh, must have been just touched
Yeah.
a little. Don't touch anything anymore.
Stay away from the table.
Please subscribe to us via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Music, and YouTube. And visit us on engineering.tech. This was Engineering Tech Show.